The year is 2011. Champak Chacha has just finished his lunch and flips on the TV. On screen, a news anchor yells about a corrupt officer caught taking bribes. Chacha sighs. He says, "Kya desh banaya hai? What is this country even?" Then he goes to take a nap. Then he wakes up, picks up his evening tea and a newspaper. Then he sees on the front page another scam. Next morning, during his walk with the Gokul Dham Society gang, they're all fuming about corrupt netas. And then comes the epic monologue, the words of wisdom from Champak Chacha himself. The whole country is corrupt. These people have spread like mosquitoes everywhere. If corruption ends, then Ram Rajya will return. Yes, that was an actual dialogue. I can't show it to you because copyright. Anyway, in 2011, this was actually happening on Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma. In case you forgot, even Baba Ramdev got into action. He started screaming about how much black money is stashed in Swiss bank accounts. The nation was in full meltdown mode. And for good reason. 2G scam, CWG, Colgate, they were all making daily headlines. We were seeing black money and corruption everywhere. Everywhere. In fact, corruption was the national villain. The devil that we all hate. It was hiding in potholes, stashed in ceilings, under beds, and piled up in Swiss bank lockers as well. The media couldn't shut up about it. Primetime anchors were in full crusader mode. Even parliament looked like it gave a damn for once.
हर सत्र से पहले ही सरकार का एक नया घोटाला उजागर होता है और दूसरा घोटाला पहले का रिकॉर्ड तोड़ता है, तीसरा घोटाला दूसरे का रिकॉर्ड तोड़ता है.
There were debates, questions, and full-blown shouting matches about accountability. People were forwarding corruption jokes via SMS. Yes, ancient times. I'm talking about 2011. I remember some people I know actually made New Year's resolutions about how they want to end corruption in the country. I mean, even Tarak Mehta said, enough is enough. All that anger, all that frustration boiled over, and then arrived the India Against Corruption movement. Anna Hazare started fasting, Ram Leela Maidan was packed, people were on the streets, slogans were in the air, media was playing it and showing it 24 hours a day. Not going to lie, I was there as a 21-year-old me. It felt like a moment of revolution. It almost felt like this time we are actually going to fix our country. That we will kill the main villain once and for all. We will murder corruption in India. And out of all of this chaos emerged a messiah. This messiah promised to eradicate corruption, bring back the black money that is in Swiss bank accounts and distribute it to everyone. Yeah, remember that? So what happened to that? What happened? It's 2025 now. It's been more than a decade. Is corruption gone? Is it dead? Have we killed the devil? Have we killed the monster? Is it just me or has something changed in the last decade? This is a video about the biggest scam of them all. This is a video about how corruption has been legalized. This is a video about why you don't care about it anymore. On that, I have a bunch of thoughts. So, in 2014, Supreme Leader Shri Sir Adarniya Sir Prime Influencer Narendra Ji Modi Ji made his entry. He looked straight into the camera and said,
भाइयों बहनों मेरा मंत्र है न खाता हूँ न खाने दूंगा.
Meaning, I will not eat and I will not let you eat also. Money. He was talking about bribes, not fafda, I hope. Anyway, if you believed that shit back then like so many of us did, it's totally fine. Don't blame yourself too much. We Indians have very few things to actually feel hopeful about. And Modi came in like this glorious, hopeful, anti-corruption savior who would end our dark times once and for all, who will satisfy our anger. But if you still believe that shit 11 years later, then I think you, especially you, need to watch this video till the end. Because after becoming Prime Minister, the Messiah did a few things that just killed all that built up hope. In fact, he did the opposite of what we were expecting. And maybe you didn't even see it or realize that it was happening. So I feel like it's my job to remind you right now. Let's start with his first anti-corruption fun activity. One fine evening in 2016, at 8 p.m., the Prime Minister appeared on TV and announced that 500 and 1000 rupees notes were no longer legal tender. Just like that, 86% of India's currency was declared invalid. The stated aim of this absolute madness was to end black money. The simplistic logic at play here was that a lot of Indians are storing their black money in cash.
So why don't we just make it all invalid? And yeah, let's just do that. Let's do a Tughlaqian diktat and eradicate all black money at once.
What was the result? For 2 months, common people were standing in queues outside banks, even dying standing outside banks. There was total chaos, ATMs were running dry, and our GDP took a massive punch in the face hole. And after all of that, 99.3% of all currency came back. 99.3%. Turns out corrupt people are smarter than you think. They're not stashing their cash under mattresses like some 80s Bollywood villain. They were buying real estate, gold, and creating shell companies to store their illegitimate wealth in offshore bank accounts. In 2024, Indian money parked in Swiss banks has tripled, more than tripled, to 3.5 billion Swiss francs. That's nearly 37,600 crore rupees. I've done a whole different episode on demonetization a while ago. I will leave a link below. You can watch that because demonetization is a canon event. It is. In hindsight, I think we need to look at this event as the first attempt by Messiah Modi to get rid of corruption. He came up with a simple, harebrained solution and decided to implement it without really thinking of the consequences. But I do think perhaps that he genuinely thought it would work. Okay, let's just assume that Modi actually wanted to get rid of black money and corruption in India. But instead of going after each and every corrupt person, proving it all in court, and then, bringing back the black money, if at all, he just decided to go after everyone. He said that, honest people are still honest. They will just deposit their bank money. But the bad people, though they will be the ones crying. And he failed spectacularly. My running theory is that this canon event changed the way Modi government looks at corruption in general. After this, they thought,
So looks like we can't get rid of corruption. All numbers and data indicate that demonetization did jack shit. It actually ruined us a little bit. So next step, why don't we just hide it all? Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. Am I right? Let's do that.
Because the next big anti-corruption move that they did was just bonkers. Let's talk about electoral bonds, Modi's second fun activity. This was by far the most elegant money laundering scheme in the history of Indian democracy. In 2017, the government introduced a special currency that can only be used by political parties. Mota electoral bonds did the following things. They removed the requirement for political parties to disclose donors. Political parties could take money from anyone and everyone using this special currency and not reveal it to the public. Number 2, electoral bonds lifted the cap on how much companies can donate to political parties. It's an infinite money glitch basically, which means that even loss-making shell companies, shady-ass offshore companies were allowed to make donations to political parties. Our biggest bank, SBI, was made the gatekeeper for all of this, but they weren't allowed to publicly reveal who was donating to whom and how much. So what we ended up with was a chanda do dhanda lo model. Bribe a political party and get favors in return to grow your business, because that is the only way to grow your business in Modi's India. That is the ease of doing business that he talks about. Give money to us, take favors from us, luto. Just do a monopoly. Why don't you? Buy all the airports and everything. You want that government contract, a special favor, that license? Well, no problem. Just buy an electoral bond, hand it over to the ruling party, and everything shall be done. Ease of doing business. Nothing else required. 55% of all electoral bond donations over 5 years went to the BJP. Even companies that were being investigated by ED and CBI for corruption were buying bonds. Some would donate one day and get massive government contracts the next day. This continued to happen for 5 whole years till 2023, when the Supreme Court stepped in and cancelled this whole scheme. They said, reveal all the data. And even after that, the Prime Messiah, with zero shame and irony, claimed that he brought transparency to political funding.
Sir, I also want to ask you about the electoral bonds data that has been published. Do you think this has caused some embarrassment to your party, a setback?
ये तो मोदी ने इलेक्ट्रल बॉन्ड बनाया था, इसके कारण आज आप ढूंढ पा रहे हो कि पैसा बॉन्ड किसने लिया, कहाँ दिया, कैसे। वरना तो पहले तो पता ही नहीं था, चुनाव का तो खर्चा होता था, कम से कम इलेक्ट्रॉन बॉन्ड होता था, आपको बस जानकारी होती थी यहाँ से यहाँ गया, यहाँ गया, यहाँ गया।
Basically, after he failed to get rid of what he thought was black money back in 2016 with demonetization, he just invented a new kind of crony corruption so that people don't question him too much. In fact, he literally created a new infinite currency for bribe givers and takers to interact with each other and get shit done. It's pure genius when you think about it. And the genius doesn't stop here, because the last and latest and greatest act by Modi was just chef's kiss. I mean, I don't even know what to call this one. Let's talk about PM CARES Fund. In the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, the government set up a fund called PM CARES. Prime Messiah asked citizens, companies, NRIs and everyone else to donate. It ended up collecting over 13,000 crore rupees over 2 years. Where did all this money go? Well, to this day, the government of India, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has refused to allow citizens to access information about the fund under Right to Information Act. The reason they give is that PM CARES Fund is not a government body. It is a charitable trust set up and controlled by the Prime Minister, Home Minister and other trustees. So, understand what happened here. Our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, used his own personal name as Prime Minister and collected over 13,000 crore rupees from the public during a pandemic. Not just that, he literally cut the salaries of government employees and transferred that money into the fund. And then he just refused to tell anyone and everyone what he is going to do with this money. What? Weirdly enough, even in 2023, this PM CARES fund has received 909 crore rupees. I mean, the pandemic is over, everything is back to normal. So, who is giving money still? Why are people still donating to PM CARES? The website of this fund claims to have spent 6,800 crore for COVID relief, but nobody knows where the money actually went. Auditor statements, expense reports, donation details are all hidden from the public. This is especially weird because there is already an existing PM National Relief Fund, PMNRF, which has been used time and again over the years to provide aid to people affected by natural disasters and calamities. So, Messiah Modi did not even need to create another fund for the same purpose. But he did. And it is totally hidden. I'm not going to lie. This is just bizarre. I mean, to me, it looks like a shameless money grab on the back of a national tragedy using the Prime Minister's name. So, Just to recap, these three acts by Masaya Modi tell you the administration's changing attitude towards corruption. Step 1. Try to nuke black money with demonetization, fail spectacularly. Step 2. Create a fancy new loophole for political bribery. Create a special currency to enable big ticket bribery and call it reform. Call it transparency because who cares? Step 3. Use a pandemic to collect 13,000 crore in public donations and make it legally untraceable. So, what began as a promise to end corruption quietly turned into a campaign to rebrand it. But this was only phase 1. No government can pull off this kind of corruption normalization by itself. For all of this to be successful, the Modi government needed one more thing. It had to Over the last decade, the Modi government has systematically murdered all the watchdogs that are supposed to catch large-scale corruption happening in India. Let me show you. Exhibit A, the CAG. Back in 2012, there was one institution in India that was hailed as a hero, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, or CAG. In case you don't know, the CAG is responsible for auditing government spending and finding out if everything is happening properly. If they spot anything shady, they generate a report on it and make it public. In 2012, CAG released a series of reports on 2G spectrum deals, allocation of coal blocks, and corruption in the Commonwealth Games held in Delhi. The media latched onto it, ran with it, and caused a political meltdown. BJP, which was in the opposition back then, launched a massive attack against the UPA government based on these reports. And of course, there was the non-political anti-corruption movement happening as well, all because of the CAG. So, a decade later, what happened to the CAG? What is it doing now? Well, simple answer, they are still doing their work. But the complicated answer is that today the CAG could publish a report titled Modi sells the moon to Gautam Adani, and you'll just scroll past it and not care about it. Well, don't believe me? Case in point, the recent CAG report on the Dwarka Expressway, a pet project under Modi's Bharat Mala program. In 2023, the CAG pointed out that the government had spent 14 times the approved amount to build the Dwarka Expressway. The approved cost was 18.2 crore per kilometer, but actual spend is 250 crore per kilometer. It also found that ineligible bidders were selected and bids were awarded on the basis of faulty project reports. The CAG saw all of this, put it all in a report and made it public. But did you even hear about it? Did you see flashy headlines and endless debate screaming,
Modi government caught in expressway scam. CAG estimates a loss of 10,000 crore to taxpayers. The nation wants to know where this money went. Count the number of zeros. Just count it. Count the number of zeros. Corruption in broad daylight. Jago Bharat Jago. Let's go protest. Woo!
Yeah, none of that happened. The thing is, when you think about it, in 2011, a CAG report like this, or two of them, could collapse an entire government. In 2025, these are just PDF files that nobody even bothers to open. The CAG is still doing its job from time to time, but since nobody is looking at it, it is just out of sight, out of mind. And this is only one of the watchdogs that has been made irrelevant. I present to you Exhibit B, the Right to Information Act. Remember the RTI Act of 2005? It's a landmark law that empowered citizens to question the government, to seek information, to suss out the truth and expose corruption. Well, newsflash, that's dead now. It's dead. RIP RTI. In 2019, Modi's government changed the law to control how long information commissioners can serve and how much they get paid, indirectly taking over the entire RTI mechanism. Then came the Data Protection Act of 2023, which basically turns RTI into a complete joke. It allows the government to deny almost any RTI request by labeling it as personal information, and personal information now includes individuals, companies, artificial juristic persons, and the government itself. Mota, if you are hoping to expose corruption by merely asking the government for information using the Right to Information Act, you can't anymore. It's gone. Congratulations to everybody. But I'm not done, because let's talk about Exhibit C, the Lokpal. Yes, remember that? The Lokpal was supposed to be the crown jewel of the 2011 anti-corruption movement. One of the demands of the anti-corruption movement was to create a new independent institution which would investigate and prosecute cases of corruption. That's the Lokpal. We fasted for it, we protested for it, we made an entire government fall because that government refused to implement it. Then when Modi government came to power, the law was in existence, but what did he do? First, he refused to even appoint a Lokpal head for 5 whole years, practically neutering the institution right there at the get-go. It was just words on a piece of paper. Because accountability is easy to demand when you are not in power, but once you are in power, oof, this thing that you wanted in existence is now just inconvenient. When the Modi government finally got around to appointing a Lokpal in 2019 because the court asked them to, they made sure it would be toothless, faceless, and spineless. Fast forward to 2025, and the only big thing the Lokpal has done till date is giving a clean chit to Madhabi Puri Buch, former chairperson of SBI, who was allegedly caught in the Adani Hindenburg scandal. It was alleged that Madhabi owned investments linked to Adani group of companies herself while she was the chairman of SEBI. Plus, she failed to disclose all of this to SEBI or the Supreme Court appointed expert committee. Buch was also receiving consultancy payments from companies that were under investigation. The Lokpal looked at all of this based on a complaint and said,
This looks like a hit job by that short seller Hindenburg. What is it? Hindenburger? Yeah. Hindenburger is at fault, you see. Nothing happening here. Just case dismissed. This Buch is clean.
Basically, looking at all this, I'm pretty sure that the Lokpal has been turned into a glorified HR department for crony capitalists. Won't be surprised if they announce a Rangoli making competition tomorrow. Probably wo to kar lete hai, right? Rangoli making. Let's do that. And finally, let's come to Exhibit D. The big dogs. Enforcement Directorate, Central Bureau of Investigation, and IT, Income Tax Department. These are India's central investigative agencies. They were originally designed to investigate financial crimes, money laundering, tax evasion, and public corruption. Today, they are better known for doing last-minute raids on opposition politicians just before elections and politely looking away when netas change parties to join the BJP mid-scam. Take a look at the ED. According to data, the ED filed 5,297 cases against the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA, between 2014 and 2025. 98% of those involved were opposition leaders. Only 47 of those cases have gone to trial. And what is the conviction rate? A glorious 0.7%. Which means out of every 1,000 people they accuse, they actually managed to convict just 7. Not exactly a stellar track record. But the goal here is not to actually punish anyone. The goal here is to harass them, jail them, and break political opponents. Enforcement Directorate is now the Extortion Directorate, and they're doing an excellent job of it. Excellent. A+. The CBI isn't much better. The Supreme Court famously called it a caged parrot back in 2013, a puppet of the government, not an independent investigative agency. Under Modi though, the parrot didn't escape the cage. It just changed owners. In 2018, CBI Director Alok Verma was removed overnight after he tried to investigate corruption allegations against senior government officials. Since then, the CBI has become the go-to tool for selective persecution and silent burial. Then we come to the Income Tax Department, which is of course not doing any better. In 2017, when the Modi government brought in the electoral bonds, they also amended the powers of the income tax department. They changed the law to give legit superpowers to this department. Under the new law, if any officer has a reason to believe that someone is evading paying taxes, then they can just go and raid them. You must have noticed the pattern as well. If you are an opposition politician, well, get ready for a raid. If you run an NGO that is critical of the government, get ready for a raid. If you are a journalist, a university, or a media house which is not towing the Modi government line, well, IT raid incoming. Meanwhile, companies that donated to BJP via electoral bonds miraculously saw these investigations vanish. So, one hand raids and the other hand collects. Basically, using these three organizations, the Modi government has implemented a political subscription model. If you are someone who is corrupt, then you better get the subscription of BJP today and you should side with them. Otherwise, you are pay subscription, get immunity. Don't pay, too bad. Modi ji will raid your ass. This, my dear viewers, is how corruption gets normalized. In the Modi era, they have built a machinery that works in two parts. One, they made ridiculous moves like demonetization, electoral bonds and PM cares to specifically allow large-scale corruption. Two, they brutally murdered all of the institutions and organizations that are supposed to catch this large-scale corruption. But we are not done yet. No, because there is one final piece required in this whole corruption legalization abhiyan. And this one, by far, is the most important one. How do you stop the public at large, including you, from caring about corruption in general? The answer is to understand the shifting narrative, I need to introduce you to this wonderful concept called Overton window. Imagine a window. Inside this window are ideas that are considered acceptable in public discourse at any given time. In simple words, it's the box of normal thinking. Ideas outside this window are considered unacceptable and radical, not normal. Joseph Overton introduced this concept in 1990s. After his death, his colleague Joseph Lehman formalized it and named it as the Overton window. It shows how public opinion and not individual politicians determine what stays in or out of the window. In short, this is how it works. First, the ideas inside the box. You can say them on TV, you can discuss them at work, you can share them on dinner tables. 10 years ago, corruption was at the center of this window. You were allowed and even encouraged to talk about it. It was on the front page of every newspaper, it dominated every news channel, and it even showed up on popular mass-consumed shows like Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma. Back then, Anna Hazare's fast wasn't some niche protest. It was mainstream. It was cool to care, it was cool to attend that protest or even join one in your neighborhood. In fact, it was considered your patriotic duty to be angry at the UPA government. But then, the window shifted, which brings us to the second part of the Overton window. What happens to the ideas outside the box? They are considered too extreme, too negative, too political. Best not to talk about it. If you do talk about it, then you will be considered a fringe element or someone who is not normal. So what happened between 2011 and 2025 is that this window has shifted. Bit by bit, it has moved to include a new set of ideas that are considered normal. Protesting was normal back then, now it's considered an anti-national activity. Nobody would have thought back then that the Prime Minister would stuff a bank account with money without even telling anyone what he's going to spend it on. Back then, that would be considered corruption. Now, it's normal. Keeping a watch on scams and calling out corruption openly was normal back then. Now it's something that can be ignored. In fact, what is considered normal has completely shifted in the last decade. Constantly tom-tomming GDP figures and screaming $4 trillion economy is normal. Kanvariyas walking around and destroying vehicles, beating up dhaba owners every year is normal. People dying in a stampede during events is normal. ED and CBI raids on opposition is normal. Horse trading MLAs flying them to resorts and making state governments fall is normal. All of these things were frowned upon earlier because they were outside the window. Now the window has shifted and they are all normal. So you might be wondering, who is it that shifts this window? Who decides what is normal and what isn't? Well, we do as a collective, not directly, not individually. The Overton window is shifted by what the collective public consumes, discusses, repeats, and then eventually accepts. And in a country like India, the biggest movers of political discourse are these. Number 1, news media. Back in 2011, mainstream news was focused on scams and protests. Now they are more concerned about Muslim dhaba owners on the Kanwariya route. Number 2, pop culture. A decade ago, we had movies like Rang De Basanti, which openly showed a minister getting assassinated for doing a defense scam which involved planes. Sounds familiar? Yeah, that was in a movie. Reality में थोड़ी होता है ये सब. Now we have outright pro-BJP propaganda movies which are promoted by politicians and subsidized by the government. That is mainstream now. Tarak Mehta would also fall in the same category. Even they have started promoting government schemes. Number 3, politicians. Back then, there were politicians who were constantly focused on corruption in the government. BJP was in the opposition back then and they were doing a great job of being in the opposition. Now we have Kangana Ranaut, an MP from Mandi, who laughs at the devastation that is in her constituency. Number 4, influencers. This is a new category of people that has emerged over the last decade. I would say podcasters are the new narrative setters in a lot of ways, but they'd rather talk about yetis and ghosts and shit instead of corruption. And then finally, we have the platforms that host all of this, like WhatsApp, Instagram, and YouTube. The government is obsessed with controlling all of this. They have used advertisement money, regulations, and laws like broadcasting bill to make sure all of these platforms fall in line. The Modi government didn't just get lucky that the public stopped caring about corruption. They carefully and deliberately built an ecosystem which would shift the narrative over time. Like a frog in boiling water. You are the frog and they are boiling the water and you are dying. So, in short, we didn't fix the problem of corruption. We just stopped calling it corruption. Yeah. The Overton window was shifted so drastically that the entire narrative around corruption was changed. Okay, so even if the narrative has changed, did we actually get rid of corruption though? Was there any effect at all? Like, has corruption reduced even a little bit? What about when Modi came in, we were told that digital governance enabled Jam Trinity, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile would reduce corruption. In fact, we were told that this would be one sure shot solution as well to get rid of it. Well, newsflash, corruption is still very much a thing. It just got harder to see and easier to get away with. Just ask yourself, have you stopped paying the under the table chai pani kharcha when you want to get some government work done? Do you never pay in cash while buying property or paying rent? Have you stopped tiptoeing your way through a sarkari office just to get what you are already entitled to, the services? Of course you haven't. Just see the numbers. India dropped 11 ranks on the Corruption Perception Index from 85 in 2022 to 96 in 2024. 52% of Indians who used public services in the last year said that they paid bribes for services which they already pay taxes for, by the way. And more importantly, over half the respondents said that they are paying more bribes now than 5 years ago. I mean, inflation affects bribery also. Just saying. The reality of India can be explained in 4 words. Paisa fake tamasha dekh. Which is, rich people throw money at their problems to make it go away. Poor people cannot throw money at anyone, so they suffer. Daily wagers, elderly pensioners, people depending on ration and government schemes, they are the ones who cannot afford to wait. So they are forced to cough up whatever is asked, like even if it's a little bit. Giving bribes is a way for them to survive. And since we, the privileged, don't see that happening, over time we have just internalized everyday corruption. We don't see it as theft anymore, we just see it like convenience charge. It has been normalized. And now corruption has become so normal that it is being faked. In Delhi, 7 fake ED officers raided a farmhouse, held the resident hostage overnight, and tried to extort 5 crore rupees from them. In Mumbai, 4 fake ED officers looted 25 lakh rupees in cash and 3 kg of gold from a businessman in Zaveri Bazaar. These scams don't work because they are clever or anything of that sort. They work because everyone just assumes that ED will do late night raids now. It's just expected. It's not unthinkable, it's routine. It's normal everyday shit that happens in India. A ED raid on your neighbor. हाँ कुछ किया होगा, I guess. Here's another funny little case from March 2025. The CBI launched a raid against Assistant Director of Enforcement Directorate, Vishal Deep, who allegedly demanded a 55 lakh bribe. When the CBI came to nab him, Vishal fled in a car filled with cash. They later found another 56 lakh just stashed in his house and his office. Yes, an ED officer was being chased by the CBI with bundles of bribe money literally flying out of the back of his SUV like a Bollywood movie. We are living in that ridiculous timeline now where corruption has gotten so bad that investigative agencies need another investigative agency to raid its own people. I mean, this is a really messed up situation for a country to be in. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I was thinking, since scams used to be the big thing that people used to care about, is there a way to make people start caring about it again? And I think I might have the answer. On that, I have a bunch of thoughts. What were you doing between 2011 and 2013? Go back in time a little bit and think. Did the anti-corruption protest reach you somehow? Did it make you angry? Did it inspire you to do something? What was I doing? Well, this is me reading out some protest poetry in 2012. That is probably the only time I will ever write poetry because it was terrible. But I had fire inside. Words came out and then onto a stage. And I was also making edgy memes like these. Yeah, judge me, but bahut revolutionary. Kafi revolutionary, okay, all of this. I was doing something. What I remember back then is that India was angry. Yeah, we were watching our leaders, our media, our activists talk about scams with fire in their eyes. So we also got inspired. It didn't matter whether it was 2G, Commonwealth or Colgate. We were united in our belief that corruption was killing India. Corruption was killing this country and taking it backward. Now in 2025, it is worth asking, where did that fire go? Was all of that just a pretense that an entire country was putting up with? Were we all being gaslit into being angry? Was that anger against corruption even justified? And just because the party in power changed, did we get rid of corruption in everyday life? Or at all? These are all questions that you will have to answer. But if you are looking for a scam to get angry about, I will tell you about the biggest one. The mother of all scams. Okay, wait. The entire video was about that scam only. Did you realize that? Surprise! But still, I'll tell you again. Here it is. Pay attention. Biggest scam of them all. Over the last decade, Modi and BJP have created an environment where all of us stop caring about corruption just so that they can do all the scams that they want openly and legally. I've laid it all out for you in this video so that you can see it all for yourself. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to call out this scam because it's the biggest scam of them all. If we do that, then we might actually force the Overton window back to where it was in 2012, where the entire nation was angry at corrupt officials and politicians back when crooks were actually scared of getting caught instead of filling their cars with money and then doing a escape routine like a Bollywood movie. Just saying. Maybe, just maybe, we need to try and shift our personal Overton windows to a position where talking about scams, investigating them, and then screaming at people in power is okay again. Because unless we acknowledge that we have a problem, why would we even try to solve it as a society? I mean, if you don't see corruption around you, then why would you want it gone? Remember what they say? The greatest trick that the devil ever pulled was to convince everyone that it does not exist. Corruption is India's biggest devil, and it's time to see it. Because friends, let me tell you, the damage inflicted on our critical thinking brains over the last decade is quite severe. It is intense. If we don't try to fix it now, we are truly f***ed as a society and as a country. I'm just saying it as it is. Think about it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hello and thank you for watching this video. This one took me how much? 3 weeks to make? It takes a while. It takes a while to collect all of this information, write a script, putting it into a narrative, and then bringing it to you. So if you have been liking my videos and my live streams and everything that I do here, please do consider subscribing and joining this channel. It really helps. I'm almost at 100k subscribers. I would really like it if you actually subscribe to this channel. Really want to get to that 100k mark because I have no real achievements in life and I'm doing so much hard work now to get your approval. So you better like this video and subscribe to this channel. Yeah, I need a silver button in my life. Thank you. If you are one of those who is helping me get that, thank you. I will see you later.